Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lifeline, the conversation that is defining the future of healthcare and AI. Today's theme is how intelligence, coordination, and agency move from institutions to individuals, and what changes in healthcare as that unfolds. So today I'm joined by a plethora of galaxy brain builders, speakers, and thinkers.
Ray muted.
And I can hear live just fine. That's actually, can everyone hear me? Can I see a thumbs
I can hear
up?
you. Yep.
Cool, awesome. Making sure we're streaming and we are rocking and rolling. So yeah, with that said, we have an awesome panel today. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. And I'd like to kick off by just passing around the microphone for a short round of introductions. No particular order. Let me go ahead and kick off with Chris. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me, Ray. Thanks, David. Thanks, Tuan, Charlie, Cindy, everyone. Happy to be here. I work with Ava Labs on the BD team, focus on AI deep insight.
Oh, sorry. Somehow I cannot hear you guys.
Oh.
I'm not sure if it's a technical challenge from your side, Tuan. We can.
Should I log out and log in again?
Yeah, you can try that.
Drop a thumbs up.
Okay, so let me log out and get in again. Yeah.
Perfect.
No worries. Until we have AI taking over the internet, we'll have these kind of slight technical hiccups here and there. Apologies. Chris, go ahead and...
No, you're good. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we're here at Ava Labs on the BD team, focusing on AI, deepen, obviously infrastructure, and the cornerstone of healthcare and AI, like what we're going to discuss today, as well as the very complex but very visionary project that David Post is working on, which I'm very, very excited for. So yeah, happy to dive deep into it.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. Going to be a great conversation. Little technical check 1, 2. Tuan, can you hear us okay now?
Yes.
Awesome, my friend. Sweet. We were just joking that until AI takes over the internet, we're going to have some technical
I usually get kicked off like 5 or 6 times. So if you get kicked off once, you're in good shape here.
Oh yeah, so far you haven't beaten David's record. No worries, my friend. But this is a perfect segue there, Tuan. Fantastic to have you with us today. We would love to hear a bit about what you're doing at Life and to hear an introduction for the audience.
Okay, so I start first or something. Okay, cool. So yeah, my name is Tuan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of LifeAI. And LifeAI, is a foundational AI platform that enables organizations to launch life science product from precision health to drug discovery faster and at a much lower cost. We already provide precision health services for more than 100,000 paid users across 7 countries. And we are now actually collaborating with many academic and hospital partners around the world. And very happy to be here. Yeah. Looking forward to our discussion.
I'm very excited to learn more about the amazing things happening at LifeAI. And we also are joined here by Charlie from the Arena app. Charlie, how are we doing?
Good morning, or good afternoon, wherever everyone is tuning in. Yeah, great to be here with a stacked panel. Really excited to sort of dive into the conversation. And yeah, great to be here and see some familiar faces too. It's always nice.
Absolutely, my friend. Always great to have you with us. And of course, we also have Cindy Shi as well from KiteAI. Kite's doing some really phenomenal, interesting stuff in the AI sector. Cindy, how are we doing today? Would love to hear a little bit about Kite and what you're working on.
Hi, everyone. Great to have this conversation with all the speakers here. So Kite is building the fundamental payment infrastructure for the agentic internet. We believe the agent is getting smarter and smarter, so they need a completely new payment infrastructure to support it, do the trusted transaction, interaction, and the coordinations. Of course, on top of that, there will be a lot of the use cases. I believe healthcare using agents to improve a lot of use cases in healthcare is one of them. So very exciting to explore more with other speakers here.
Absolutely, and agents are definitely evolving payments, healthcare, and everything in between. So it's going to be a phenomenal conversation. And of course, last but certainly not least, we have David Post as well from Fusion. David, how are we doing today? And tell us, what's Fusion all about?
What up? David Post, core contributor to Fusion. Basically, it's an ecosystem of projects that are building, for real-world outcomes, vertical-specific ecosystems that have a unique token and network design. And we think it's the next projects building in Fusion, which is based upon Avalanche, is the next wave of what's going to be cool for base layer blockchain economies, because they're building for markets where there's demand, not selling block space, selling outcomes. Nice to be here.
Absolutely, and phenomenal to have you with us. And outcomes are definitely what we're looking towards when we're talking about agentics and healthcare, and of course, blockchain is a big component of that. So what I'd really like to do is start at a high level here for our audience. I'd love to pass a question over to Chris. Chris, you have some deep experience with blockchain and going to market with technology built on distributed ledgers at Ava Labs. So if healthcare is going to support autonomous systems acting on behalf of people, like actually coordinating their care, handling some of their personally identifying information, what kind of infrastructure do we need to make that happen? Why does blockchain make sense for healthcare here? And specifically, what makes Avalanche a bit unique when it comes to solving this kind of puzzle?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, a lot of people don't know that I was a biology undergrad. So I got a lot of exposure in this kind of industry. In biology, you have, a lot of players and actors. You have patients, doctors, labs, insurance companies, even physical devices, right? A lot of people touch these devices or touch these, the story that all of these actors pass along. But details are lost, records are lost, and stuff breaks in the middle. You always have to be like, oh, did you know that this happened? Or do we have record of this happening? What Tuan's doing and Life Network is revolutionary, right? I mean, blockchain will help with that, not necessarily by having the medical data on chain, but you have the ledger, you have the receipts on chain. You know if consent happened, if approval happened, if a result was finalized, if a payment happened, who did it, et cetera, et cetera. So Avalanche, I think, is the best player who can support this kind of thing. It's fast, high throughput, it's inexpensive, it's reliable, right? I mean, some blockchains went down during the whole fiasco with AWS, Cloudflare, et cetera. Avalanche is truly decentralized. We are a system that can support these institutions, these enterprises. That's why governments work with us, healthcare works with us, and then it's the Avalanche L1 story. It's a dedicated network. The performance that you're gonna get. You're gonna get the security model that's promised across the entire network, and you're still interoperable. So you can service whoever you want to service.
Absolutely, and that interoperability is a huge component. The ability to coordinate across the different systems, different tooling is central. And it's something you mentioned there, Chris. In my mind, it relates a bit to what David, you mentioned. You talked about coordination and business outcomes. I'm really interested in your take, David, on this in terms of coordination on-chain in healthcare. So healthcare already has intelligence, right? Has doctors, tools, has a lot of cutting edge technology, yet there's still pieces that break down. So I'm really curious, in your perspective, what does it mean for healthcare to have its own dedicated coordination layer? And how do you view kind of your thesis as a core contributor to Fusion impacting healthcare as it evolves over time?
I mean, there's not a modular open source way of putting together healthcare services. That's the big issue right now, is that everything's locked away in silos, and that it really undermines the achievement of individual health outcomes. So the way that some people have tried to do this is when I worked at IBM, they acquired lots of lives. Those lives were interoperable. They couldn't be combined. This was kind of like in the Watson Health days before AI really took off. So it might have been premature. But if you want to, have a human health network and improve human health, you have to be able to combine different characteristics that matter to people's overall well-being, and do so in a way that allows for new products and services to be built on top of that. So whether that's genetic data, which Tuan has a lot of experience with, whether that's having AI capabilities which allow people to sift through individual health characteristics to identify patterns. If we want to have better human health, we have to have access to better human health data, and have that data in a way where really innovation can happen. So that's what I'm really excited about the work that LifeAI is doing, is that it's basically providing a structure and a paradigm for anybody to come and combine different types of human health assets in ways that are going to improve overall human health and well-being. And I think that that's really powerful. It's using, we use blockchain here, it's as a record of transactions, but it's a way of coordinating an ecosystem of participants. And I think that's really where the magic here is how do you get participants who may be economically aligned, maybe mission aligned, and combine them into a business network and to collaborate in ways that you couldn't do under traditional economic models. And I think that's the direction this is going in. We used to call this decentralized science. Tuan yells at me, and I agree, this is not decentralized science. Because that sounds too researchy and scientific. Although there's science here, this is a network that's focused on outcomes and around healthcare innovation in the area of AI. And it did nothing I'm excited about this project because nothing really exists that even has this type of mindset in relation to how you would go about combining the building blocks of humans, like the things we know about ourselves, and putting them in a framework where we can increase both individual and population level health. So this is a vertical network focused on human health and around human health outcomes. And that's what I think is very cool about it.
Definitely echo that sentiment. And there's a couple points you laid out there, David, that I think is very crucial for our discussion, specifically as we move from kind of like the theory of applying blockchain to healthcare outcomes and moving that into reality, which is where we land when we find LifeAI. Over 500,000 people are using the platform. Testnet is doing phenomenally well, and I'm really curious. Tuan, we have you here today. I'd love to put this into practice and talk through a little bit about what real agency and ownership and sovereignty, these concepts we like to talk about in like an optimal configuration for healthcare. What does that look like in practice, especially when people are dealing with personal healthcare journeys? Would love to walk through kind of the LifeAI experience.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So basically, for the past 8 years, we have seen so many different business models in healthcare. Let's say this way, that healthcare is one of a very conservative area. Everything moves very slow because of regulation, compliance, and especially about a very sensitive information. So for us, we believe the principle will be basically a very sustainable principle. Who can follow, who can implement that principle, who basically will win the market. It's all about the 3 main points. It's about the ownership. Whenever we talk about the sensitive data, especially the health data, ownership is extremely important. Okay, extremely important. And so basically, like a lot of business model, I have seen for the past 8 years, like people having a model about incentivize you to contribute your data. It will never work. Okay, because the incentive, the incentive, whatever the incentive you provide, people will find a way to hack around and provide you, let's say, wrong data. Okay, so the ownership is extremely important. So nobody wants to give away what they own. Okay, so if we can maintain the ownership for the people, especially in healthcare, that is extremely important. Okay, the second part, the second principle we need to keep is just basically the privacy. Okay, privacy, like nobody want to reveal that, okay, maybe I have this risk of having a cancer. Okay, maybe I'm like obese, have an inborn risk of being obesity. Okay, so the privacy also a important part we have to keep in mind when we build a business in healthcare. And the third one is also the one that the blockchain can help really well, is about the transparency, the access transparency. Okay, so whenever someone say, hey, sign it consent form, and then later on we do something about you and you don't know about it. Okay, so access transparency is also the third very important principle. So that's why no matter what business model you are doing in healthcare, especially in healthcare, ownership, privacy, transparency are the 3 key principles we have to maintain. So that's why, like, we've been building LifeAI for more than like almost 8 years, and I make a joke to the Avalanche folks saying that, okay, we started LifeAI before actually Avalanche started. Okay, and then we actually built as a foundation at the human network, a network of humans. And then when the network of humans, they collaborate, and then it provides the information to the AI compute layer. So that basically the AI compute gather the data, and then it generates the data, gather the information, and generates the insight, so that we can build the AI model, what we call an impact-driven model. And then based on that system, we provide model as a service, so any other application can build on top of LifeAI, and everything is basically ready for you. Nobody need to build a model from the scratch. Okay, so come to LifeAI. You can build your application. We say 10x faster and 10x cheaper, and then you can provide a lot of like personalized, optimal healthcare application to our user. And the more application built on top of LifeAI, the more people will join the human network. Okay, and the main principle keep the human network sustainable and grow is just basically about the ownership, about the privacy, and the transparency. So that is the three basic principle how LifeAI was built and operate until now. We serve more than 100,000 paid user, and on our platform there are more than 500,000 people who actually basically register and enjoy the benefits given by LifeAI. Thank you.
I absolutely love that, and then those principles that you laid down, Tuan, are truly foundational. But like you said, people running headlong into just throwing incentives at the wall and hoping it onboards people. Getting the ingredients right is important to make sure that we're making a masterpiece here. And I just received word that as of today, December 16th, LifeAI's testnet has processed over 4.3 million testnet transactions, which is a impressive number to say the least. It definitely underlines what happens when, as you were outlining, Tuan, we have the right ingredients in place. You thoughtfully put them together. And naturally, human action is something that's very challenging to nail down and predict. But one entity, one ecosystem that I think has really done a great job, I have to say, as well, is Arena. Arena, for those who don't know, is an Avalanche social app, and it focuses on identity, trust, human connection, and just plain old fun. And healthcare is a deeply social thing, believe it or not. Having a network of people who you can rely on, seeking care from professionals, there's a social component to this. So I'm really interested, Charlie, with your work at Arena, how do you see the human layer potentially changing healthcare, and creating some social aspects around one of the most, if not the most important thing we as humans have, which is our health?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really fascinating sort of prospect to even start thinking about, because you kind of see the social element in healthcare in a lot of ways. If it's from like referrals from family members or friends, like who should I go for help here? Who should I go for help here? Especially for people who travel and move to new areas. So there's a massive social component on that side of things. But then also when you look at it on the patient side of things, people with similar health problems, health concerns, health issues all can align together and talk about their issues in one separate area, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, that social component, that social layer, while also facilitating, as Tuan was outlining, the proper data, knowing that you're talking to people who share that same experience or have at least an element of an understanding of what you're going through is core. So that trust is essential.
Yeah. And that's where I think, sorry to interject a bit, Ray, that's where I think really the tech sort of can come in and take over in its own way, which we're very lucky to have been built on Avalanche, such a good, lovely tech backdoor. So it's great having that to sort of rely on. And we have an original feature, which is our badges feature, which is sort of like stuff that can sort of appear on your Arena profile when it validates on chain. So again, when I say that you could apply the Arena technology to almost anything, you could apply it to doctors. You could have doctors who have badges for, say, holding a RWA certificate for their profession in their wallet. So there's a lot of exciting ways that you could go down. It's almost endless when you go down the rabbit hole, but it's very exciting to see where this is going to go, and I can see only benefits, to be honest, going forward.
Absolutely, I love it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. For those who use Discord, for example, they have badges for when you join and certain things that you do. So, Charlie, what you're describing is not so far fetched, right? The notion that you can create gamification around just social interactions at their core. But the trust component is so essential, and that is something that we say semi-frequently in this industry: don't trust but verify. And we have Cindy here with us from Kite, and I am just super interested in all the things that you and the team have been working on, Cindy, because when we talk about agents and we talk about trust, I know your team is at the cutting edge of this intersection. So systems that can observe, decide, and act on someone else's behalf, they naturally need to have trust. But I'm really curious, what can these AI agents that we're talking about do that traditional software can't? And as we get closer to agents potentially making healthcare decisions for people, how do we make sure that these agents are making the right decisions and can be trusted?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think basically what agent can do, two things can be very impressive is learn something in a very short time. So for example, they are more like very intelligent PhD who already have a lot of background knowledge. So if they want to pick up something new, they can learn something very quickly. So that's one thing. Another thing is they can use their algorithm and do a lot of prediction. So that means they can do the things not only just do the linear regression, for example, for the pass the results and making decision, they can also help you to predict. So based on these two features of the agent, I think in terms of the healthcare, you can think about a lot of the use cases. One thing, when we talk about healthcare, actually this is also a very broad industry. Something I think I heard or maybe learned from the past that agent can do very well. First is some diagnosis if they can absorb the right data. Second is actually the software plus the hardware. So think about if in the future you have the agent nurse or like the agent care providers that can help you with your daily life, especially for those elderly, people. So agent robotics actually is one area they need a very intelligent brain of the robotics to help. So that's the two things we can think about the future of the agent who can use for the healthcare. But making those agents smart enough, I think the first they need a lot of data to train good algorithm. And second is when agent interact with other agents, we need a new network that can support their transaction and make sure agent can trust each other, not only from the software side, but if you think about you have a software agent with the hardware agent robotics, they also need some trust the transaction based on the new infrastructure. This is something Kite think is very important and we're building. But on top of us, I think a lot of the healthcare use cases, including other use cases, for example, we are building the e-commerce use cases, can also build on top of our blockchain.
I think all that is just phenomenal, Cindy, what you laid out here. The idea that these agents can learn and grow with new information, but additionally they can predict. Setting the foundation is massive. And when you mentioned that healthcare is a broad topic, I'm learning more and more. That's definitely the case. When I said that's our most important asset is our health, there's many ways that can go sideways. So it's very diverse. And the notion that agents and hardware can come together, as you mentioned, to facilitate care for the elderly or the sick is massive. And it really does underline that notion of trust being even more crucial as this ecosystem and as this technology evolves. I'd love to take what you said there, Cindy, and then get this back over to David, because you got me thinking towards the notion of coordinating outcomes relative to this need for trust. It's a bit strange to say, but healthcare in a lot of ways today is built on a business model where people stay sick or they require people to become sick. When we're designing systems that reward health instead, going back to that kind of coordinating the outcomes, how does value potentially flow in this way when we have the patients, the healthcare infrastructure, the systems, the research? What does it look like to create incentive structures surrounding well-being rather than sickness?
Well, I mean, first you have to, human health is multidimensional. So you have to first decide whether you want to tackle this at the individual level or the population health level. I think that there's options on both sides of this. And assist to my wife, who's got her PhD in public health. So I've been forced to become an expert on this area, whether I wanted to or not. I think that so let's kind of like just go through these. So at the population level, I know one of Tuan's inspiration for starting the genetics portion of his business was there wasn't a lot of genome data on Asians, which undermined the creation of new drugs and population level health on that dimension. Now, DNA is just kind of one biomarker. If you have multiple biomarkers across both underserved populations and also populations who might be served right now, you're going to come up with different connections. It's going to show you different types of things if you have a more expansive view of population health. And the way that the best context, or I think a context where that can more readily happen, is a context that's an open ecosystem versus a closed one, right? Because everyone has incentives and can benefit both monetarily and otherwise for participating in that. So on one hand, I think this is kind of very, very, very B2B, a better structure for research on underserved populations and also populations that might be getting, served fine, but you can't get to that next level of detail because the information you need about those populations is highly fragmented. So that's one way you get this. You get coordination among service providers in advancing human health. Now, at the individual level, it's a bit different. If you have all these underlying resources and you can use stuff that Kite produces, for example, to run AI agents across them, it makes it really interesting for someone to go build like a consumer app around personalized medicine, or you have something you bring to the doctor that basically pulls from various tests that you've done, so you can get a personalized health plan or a personalized nutrition plan. So what I think is cool about this more open model is that it allows people who serve populations to get more granular information. And it also involves people who want to serve individuals to basically allow individual people to have their own healthcare more in their control and in their hands and less siloed. So that's what this does when it scales, is it helps human populations get healthier. And of course, that has an individual benefit. But if I'm an individual, I'm building a business that's helping individuals become more healthy, I can now do it. The barriers to entry have been removed in ways that they previously were not. So that's what I think is very cool about this overall vision. And that's how you get coordination. We're excited about this project because it's going to improve human health. That's the objective. That's a big vision. This is the human network. So there's lots of ways that this type of a network structure helps us get there in ways I think is impossible using other methods or approaches.
I absolutely love that. And it strikes the heart of something that I see glimmers of everywhere nowadays, and the mushrooming out of technology. And that's a glint of collaboration now in human coordination, which is fantastic to see. And what you were just describing there, David, in terms of the coordination that's occurring live now with LifeAI, and as well as Kite and entities using the fusion model, is that there's a level of operational diversity that's facilitated by these models. So I'd love to get this over to Chris, because if I'm understanding correctly, with LifeAI's model, healthcare won't be one app, it won't be one company, but it will be likely one framework. It'll be an ecosystem. So from your perspective, Chris, how does Avalanche think about collaboration at this scale? This is a really large scale. How do we make this infrastructure feel safe and reliable enough for something as essential and crucial to humanity as healthcare?
Yeah, to kind of add on to what David and Charlie said, right, is that healthcare is not a single app. Rather, it's just a bunch of parties that have to coordinate with each other. So you have two main problems. You have trust and you have coordination. Looking at it from an Avalanche perspective, Avalanche supports that because teams can build on shared rails, for example. What that means is if they have their own sovereign network on the blockchain, on Avalanche, they can control it however they want, whether it's permissionless, pulling data with oracles from Web 2 sources, or compliance rules, or data boundaries, right, with all of these agents. Obviously, the high throughput, and like I mentioned before, guaranteed uptime expectations. We take pride in that. Obviously, we have a team that can support those kinds of enterprises, such as hospitals or healthcare giants. The team is AvaCloud. They service, some of our most successful clients, such as the FIFA blockchain, etc. So with these kinds of parameters, these kinds of players, you do get I want to call it an ecosystem. You don't get a single monolith that is reliant on a single sequencer, for example. You get something that connects it. It settles the data that you want. If you have millions and millions of patients, records, visits, things that you need to make sure that the right people are seeing, and it can't be tampered with, and it's the truth. It verifies it. That's something that is very strong with Avalanche.
Absolutely. It's something I think we've seen time and time again in the market, right? You mentioned something earlier in the conversation, Chris, why governments trust you. And my jaw hit the floor when I saw the California DMV working with Avalanche to tokenize car titles, or Bergen County, New Jersey, bringing houses on chain on Avalanche. And so to see the level of maturation this infrastructure is reaching it's very exciting and emboldening, that's for sure. And it's very encouraging that we have great thinkers and builders, such as all the folks on stage here, that are thinking deeply about these essential problems that impact not just us on chain, but the humanity writ large. And so, Tuan, I'd love to pose a question for you here with this additional context. Healthcare operates inside really strict trust frameworks across the world, different jurisdictions. When LifeAI navigates these regulatory kind of mazes, how do you accomplish this while remaining decentralized and ensuring, as Chris outlined, a lot of this publicly identifying information remains secure? I'd love to understand better how you thread that needle.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Let's pick a very concrete example. Let's talk about drug discovery. Okay, so drug discovery is a great problem. Okay, you see that in the past 30 years, pharmaceutical company did exactly the same way, the same process, and the past actually 24 months have shown that many AI company just started to tackle the drug discovery for pharmaceutical company. So the drug discovery a very complicated problem, like $2 billion, take 10 to 15 years to basically create a new drug. Okay, and so a lot of like AI companies say, hey, we can use the AI agent, we can use this AI. That AI will basically have to cut down the time to basically reasoning, create a new drug compound. Okay, but at the end of the day, we still have to do clinical trial. We have to still do a lot of like ethic study and many other things related to the personal data. Okay, so at this time, and also the very important one is, hey, you design a new drug, you need to get FDA approved, right? And let's say that if you design that drug in a very, let's say, developing country, it's really hard to get FDA approved from the US. Okay, because of a lot of like compliance regulation apply to this particular area. Okay, so however, you can see that in the past 18 months, a lot of things have changed so fast. So especially like in Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, they actually like lead the way to do drug discovery. And the nice thing about all of this one is they have the local government support. A lot of in this country, in those countries, the government actually create a sandbox for drug discovery company so that they can actually perform the clinical trial, they perform a new technology in a very controlled environment. Okay, so basically like people in that controlled environment, they cannot cut the corner, but they can move a lot of things faster. So the sandbox architecture, the sandbox mechanism actually help China, Vietnam, let's say India and Japan, Korea move way faster than the US. In the US, you can see that like Eric Smith and many other people, they actually spent 2 years to send a report to the government. It's like 200 pages of the report to the US government and saying that the US may lose the biotech war to China. Okay, so they have to do something because in the US, everything moved very slow. Everything because of the regulation about the compliance, a lot of things move very, very, very slow. So the good side of that is just make everything very safe, but another bad side of that is just basically it prevents innovation. Okay, and so that's why when I see this, and I will make a statement to our partner in the US that the US may have started the innovation, may create the origin of the new fighting. But in other countries, especially in Asia, is the place where things will happen, where the practical things, the new drug, the new therapeutics, the new gene therapies, the new medicines, the personalized medicine will basically made and distribute from Asia in the next decade. That's what I believe. Okay, so the short answer is on the regulation, it depends a lot on the local governments. When they create a sandbox in a very controlled environment to have the other company, especially in a very high-tech company like drug discovery, to move way faster. It's actually 10 times faster than other drug discovery company in the US. Yeah.
And that is an order of magnitude that's it's really hard to wrap your mind around. I know that there's a case study for LifeAI that showed a speed up, I guess, or an increase in discovery from a matter of there's multiple years to a number of weeks. So it just goes to show where we're at a really a powerful intersection of technology at this point in time. And it really got me thinking, because Tuan, you hit on a lot of very important and salient points here. I'd love to just kick this over to Chris really quickly. So Chris, I'm really interested in the technology kind of aspect around all of this, right? Because naturally there needs to be a social layer to drive, hey, this is possible, let's adopt it. And then of course has to be the underlying technology. Back in like 2009, on the PlayStation Network, what Tuan you were describing, basically researchers needed to solve this genomic problem, and they asked everyone with no financial incentive, hey, can you use your like PlayStation 3 or 4 or whatever it is to compute this problem? And it was done so successfully. So even going on 20 years ago, this was something that was possible, but it obviously wasn't quite ubiquitous yet. So Chris, my question here, I use that to frame the question of what's matured between back then and now that makes this viable, that allows us to see this kind of mushrooming out of agents, healthcare, everything in between?
I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, would be the maturity of AI, what it's reached today, what it's capable of, compute power, for example. I mean, the most basic consumer PC parts are something that NASA would have had 20 years ago, right? Technologies is just evolving very, very, very fast. You have AI agents that are making decisions on behalf of people. And if you want to bring it full scale to enterprises, to hospitals, to whoever it is, to banks, right? There's no other way other than blockchain to make that happen, to have those rails on for agents, right? To have permissions. Something I've heard before is, well, we've been dealing with permissions on Web 2 for the longest time, right? Why do we need blockchain to make that happen? We've been dealing with audits on Web 2. What's the difference, right? Well, why do I have to bring this next layer of complexity? And my answer to that is really simple, right? It's, why do cars have, discrepancy between mileage that sometimes we can't explain? Why do some people get away with being a professional at something without having the right credentials? And the list goes on and on. Blockchain solves all of those answers, especially for healthcare, right? You get this ledger that you can't tamper with. It's the truth. It's legitimate. It's something that governments would love to have in place to really secure an industry. And then obviously, end of the day, you need a system that can fully support that. I think at this rate, it's every month, every 2 months, our engineering team, our platform team is coming out with the next way to make Avalanche even faster, which is just, crazy. I don't know how it can be any faster than it is today, but proud to say, right, that, we have the speed, we have the scalability at Avalanche to make all of these enterprises work under those conditions.
I love it. And that just goes to show where we stand today in terms of the throughput, the speed, the enterprise readiness, and the continual improvements being made. Just goes to show that we're entering into a really unique era where as you were describing, Chris, a lot of these Web 2 processes, they are good enough, and I use air quotes there, but they're quickly becoming not good enough as a lot of this technology ages out. And I'm really looking forward to the next 5 years or so in terms of where this technology takes us. So I would love to do a little fun kind of lightning round as we're coming up on time here with these amazing speakers and panelists. And would love to just kind of fast forward, to 2030. Let's say, all right, it's 2030. I've long accepted that we're not going to have the Jetsons by then, right? Back in 2010, I'm like, oh man, we'll have flying cars and Gundams, but we don't have them yet. And it's only 5 years away for 2030, but things will definitely be different. So just a kind of fun lightning round here, since we do have a nice diverse panel in terms of the backgrounds and expertise. Let me kick this over to Tuan. So Tuan, the year's 2030, how do you foresee healthcare looking and feeling for an individual?
Yeah, so basically I see that the world will become more on a real healthcare. It's not like right now I consider the healthcare system is totally broken. It's a sick care system actually. So I think that in 2030 we really have a healthcare which basically like all the life care for life. Okay, and you basically have a doctor in your pocket, a personalized doctor. You go anywhere, everything is about the personalized healthcare for you, and it's the most optimal solution for your health. Yeah, it's not like, hey, Chris will have a really good way to do a weight loss program, and I follow Chris. It doesn't work for me. Yeah, simple like that. So everything will be personalized. Everything will be optimal, and we will live in a real healthcare system or the life care system where we care for life, not for the sickness. Yeah.
I love that. As specifically as an American, I'm very much looking forward to that accessibility component. And I do fear for the YouTube clickbait content creators, though, right? 10 quick tips to lose weight fast, right? Not with LifeAI, we can validate if that's actually true or not before we even watch the video. I love it, man. So super exciting future, not too far away. And of course, Cindy, I'm curious from your perspective, a lot of the things that have to do with agents and AI today, that would have sounded impossible even 5 years ago. So I'm really curious, Cindy, in 2030, what do you foresee agents doing for we humans that today maybe sounds impossible?
Yeah, I think one thing we feel very promised, which we are working very hard on, is that the agentic e-commerce. So I think that this thing has already happened, that now agent can search, place order, and do all the transaction, pay the order for human beings. So that's also, I think industry trending. If you look at how OpenAI, Shopify, PayPal, Stripe, all those companies are working together, definitely this is one trending where we are seeing. And because the agent, for the agentic e-commerce, they need the agent to pay or do the transaction for human being. So I think that will be, they need a new infrastructure completely different than the Visa, for example, the credit card system. And the blockchain is one of the ideal technology option on the path for this completely new use cases. But I think for us, what we're looking for is, this is only the fundamental infrastructure. Hopefully, because the agent getting more smarter, and also the agent-to-agent transaction infrastructure or network is also getting more robust based on all the new improvements and innovations on the current blockchain technology. We hope that's actually more use cases beyond the agentic e-commerce. For example, just like Tuan said, in the healthcare, there will be some very smart, I think, recommendation or the algorithms that give people more personalized or customized healthcare suggestions, and all those things will potentially will also promote that, okay, which healthcare plan you need to buy, which medicine you need to take, and what kind of the therapies that you need to adopt. All these things probably will also back to that agent will work with other agent to complete all those end-to-end user journeys about their healthcare selections. So we actually hope that the foundation that Kite is working on to build this infrastructure can serve these more complicated use cases, which which will be very exciting if this can be done by those AI and the agent related work.
Absolutely, and definitely the coordination of healthcare recommendations via Agentic is going to be fascinating. I love the notion of agent-to-agent commerce, or agentic e-commerce as well. The idea that someone may one day after installing these agents for e-commerce come home on a Friday after a work party, and the thing that they normally impulse buy on Amazon has been pre-ordered for them. We'll see if that's how that plays out. It's going to be an interesting we're in the future moment for sure. And I'm curious as well. I would love to ask David, similar question for you, man. So if it's 2030, what does business coordination look like on chain? I know we've seen tons of attempts to bring businesses on chain. If Fusion does what we're planning for it to do, let's say 2030 rolls around, what does that look like, David?
Well, I mean, I think you get, it's interesting, like before I started working in blockchain, I thought of supply chain in a very different type of way. So there's a traditional type of supply chain, which is how you get goods from point A to point B. There's another supply chain. A supply chain is how do you coordinate different actions among participants in a value chain. And I think that that's always been the real promise here, I think, of on-chain activity is business process automation. So everyone's excited, I think, about the intersection of AI and blockchain for a reason, because especially if we figure out, when we figure out how to tie in blockchain ecosystems into ERP systems, and we can kind of like allow people to maintain their common internal processes while outsourcing the trust onto the trust assumptions on chain. That's when I think the magic happens, because everyone can keep their business processes internally however they want to, and they can basically work around a common set of assumptions to create value in different ways than they could historically do so. So I think that you already see, it's been interesting. DeFi was kind of uninteresting for a couple of years. Now I think it's kind of very, very interesting, because I think people are seeing the glimmers here, especially with the regulatory progress, about why on-chain rails are superior in a very substantial kind of way to doing things, the way that they've been done normally. And that's kind of starting, I think, first in terms of how value moves, but I think over time it's going to change in terms of how value is created. And I think that business networks were not really possible in 2018 when I started at IBM running IBM Blockchain Ventures. I was part of all the failed initial enterprise blockchain networks. And they failed because they couldn't, number one, technologically make business processes work better. And number two, there wasn't as many opportunities to create joint economic value if you actually decided to do that. So 2030, I think that we'll have gone through the onboarding of the first phase of the financial onboarding, and I think that we will be in flight on the business process onboarding, because obviously economics is what drives a lot of the business processes that people would want to participate in a verifiable fashion.
I think that makes a ton of sense, and then mapping it out in terms of kind of waves like that in terms of the financial adoption, business coordination adoption. It does mirror a bit of what we've seen with the adoption of computerization of the internet. So very excited to kind of get a sense of where we're at on those adoption curves. And I'd love to as well, kind of keeping our 2030 glasses on, kick this over to Chris. Chris, so let's keep that focus on 5 years from now. Where do you see builders starting with Avalanche at that time? How do you see the builder experience kind of evolving between now and then?
Yeah, by 2030, we're talking, what, 4 to 5 years from now? I'm definitely going to see a world where blockchain is the norm. It's going to be how developers think of, a cloud platform today. Obviously you need the cost, you need the technicality, the expertise, etc. But you're going to have a much more streamlined process than in the future. You're going to have a lot more, decentralized nodes that anyone can kind of participate in. at a larger scale. You're going to have a lot more legislation in place. It's going to be easier, more education. You're going to see it in schools. That is my opinion, and I think it's inevitable. I think, right, if we focus on healthcare, for example, kind of like what Tuan said, right? He picked drug discovery. Anyone who is in healthcare and wants to kind of pick up blockchain, right? Don't try to fix the entire system. Pick one thing at a time. Pick your expertise, something that you're good at. Use the blockchain as the machine to power it all, right? For example, Avalanche as the state machine. Who can do what step happened, kind of what we talked about earlier. If you let's say you get one workflow that you normally do onto blockchain, feel really clean and really trustworthy, right? Like you can practice with your work environment or whoever you want to, and then you can kind of have everything else plug in later. I think that's the best way to kind of start, right? In the future, it might be a lot more accessible just because of the legislation that is there.
Absolutely. The accessibility is a huge point. And something you mentioned here, Chris, that I really want to underline is that once you get that first process down, that's really the aha moment. Not to kind of age myself a little bit, but I still remember the moment that my dad was able to access news on the internet for the first time, and well, that was it. We didn't see Dad for a couple hours. Like, oh wow, it's a whole newspaper that's here on the screen. That's interesting. So perhaps we'll have a similar inflection point moment where it looks completely different. But one thing's for sure, as someone who loves learning and standing on the shoulders of giants and learning from great builders and pioneers such as everyone here on the panel, community and conversation is not going away. I think we'll still be doing that in 2030. So Charlie, my friend, I would love to kind of get your thoughts and what kind of socialization and conversation looks like in 2030. How do we support each other socially, and what does a community look like if we fast forward?
Yeah, I think it's a very fascinating thing to think about, and like to sort of like just soak up like from the guys we have here on the panel. I think I can really see a real combination of everything that we're all working on sort of come together from the AI agentic side of things, because you already have people being able to like book appointments with virtual doctors online. So I can see that really leveling up, and sort of, I know Chris touched on it, like the technology sort of being baked in, not being like as front facing as it is currently, like sort of on the back end, and have people be able to access healthcare transparently, confidently, and be able to facilitate those transactional side of things pretty seamlessly. Like imagine a world where you could sort of book an appointment with a doctor, AI doctor, or a real person doctor, through a social protocol like Arena, and being able to just do the transaction right there. You pay in dollars, crypto, whatever. It's all validated on chain, all the credentials for the healthcare, whether they're AI. This is where it's getting crazy, because you could have AI doctors with real life certificates, which is kind of mind blowing to think about. But having that all on chain and all encompassed in the sort of package and then validated on chain is a fascinating thing to think about. And so, yeah, that's me being a little bit optimistic. I can see the future looking somewhat a bit like that, and sort of building applications on top of that or around that sort of thesis and idea would be really cool.
Absolutely, I love that, and it's similarly to yourself, Charlie. It's I look down that rabbit hole, and I just want to kind of jump in head first, because all of these technologies are coming together in a way that, or a series of ways that are so unique and dynamic that it's defining the human experience largely. And I have to say, this has just been a phenomenal conversation. I'm sure our listeners have deeply enjoyed it. It's hard to find this kind of quality of dialogue anywhere else. And then we covered so many topics: infrastructure supporting agency, business coordination and coordinated outcomes, agentics and responsibility and trust, human connection, healthcare, and proof that all of this is already working and happening in real time. And it leaves me with a pretty strong message. Like, healthcare doesn't have to stay broken, because the coordination finally exists to improve what should be healthcare that is currently more like sick care. And so very excited to see this generational shift and change. So a huge thank you to you, Chris from Avalanche, Charlie from Arena, to Cindy from Kite, David Fusion, Tuan, of course, from LifeAI. We'll have all the links below for all of these respective repositories and companies for you to check out. And this has been fantastic. So thank you all so much again to our guests and again to our listeners. This is Lifeline, the conversation that is defining healthcare's future. And we'll see you all next time.
See ya.
Thank you.